My name is Brenda Hannigan. I'm Professor of Corporate Law and Head of the Southampton Law School. I teach company law to the undergraduate programme, and I teach corporate governance to the postgraduate students. Company law is the most interesting area of law there is. But I would say that, given that it is my specialist interest, it is topical. It's always possible to link what you're researching to what's actually going on in the real business world. It's also an area that combines both parliamentary material, statutory provision, with a great deal of very interesting case law, as business parties litigate quite often about their disputes. So it's an area that allows you to combine theory and practice, both the historical legal position but also the current legal position. It's also very international in outlook because business is global these days. What interested me about corporate was that I do like the currency of it. I like the fact that these are real world business issues that you're looking at, and if you're wondering, do they have a relevance, all you've got to do is look in the financial press any day of the week and see it there. So I wanted something that was both very firmly rooted in law, wasn't just abstract policy or theory or philosophy, and had, say, a real immediacy to it. My research in company law is primarily to do with directors' duties and shareholder remedies. On the directors' duties side, the interesting issues surround really the role of boards of directors, their composition, their powers, the way in which they promote the success of the company. And I'm particularly interested in large public companies where, as we've seen following the financial crisis, if they collapse, their impact is very significant and spreads out throughout the economy. So a lot of my research has focused on the role of boards in public companies, and in particular how we monitor what the executive directors are doing, and in particular how non-executive directors contribute to oversight of those executive directors. In relation to smaller companies, my particular interest is in relation to shareholder disputes. We have millions of small companies in this jurisdiction. Most of them have 2 or 3 shareholders who are also the directors, who are also typically family members or personal friends, and disputes are extremely common. And one of the interesting areas is how company law works to resolve those disputes and ensure that the company survives without being undermined by these sorts of personal disagreements. Corporate law is a core activity for many law firms, for many barristers' firms. It also offers opportunities to go into industry, into business and into government. And so it's seen as a very important subject to take in terms of employability. So students are usually very smart and wise in their subject choices, and they appreciate that sometimes it's important to make sure that you've covered these sorts of foundational subjects, which then lets them work in other areas. Because whatever area you work in, even if you're a criminal lawyer, you find a lot of criminal activity happens through companies, so you need to know how companies operate. If you're a family lawyer, you find that lots of family assets are held through companies, so you need to know how they operate. If you were a public international lawyer advising governments, for example, about how to impose sanctions in relation to some jurisdiction or other, you'd find you need to be aware how to impose sanctions on companies. So most areas of legal work involve companies these days, and so students recognise that. The challenge in teaching company law to undergraduate students is that it's very commercially based, and often students lack commercial awareness. So in fact, they find it quite difficult initially to grasp some of the general concepts about boards of directors, about shareholders, about how companies are an abstract legal concept, but of course a real world business framework. So it can be quite challenging to get them to grasp the concepts. But the enjoyable part is over the period of a year, we work our way through each component of the company structure in a logical, coherent way. And I always try to mix a combination of the legal framework, some of the case law from the courts, so that they can see how the judges are approaching these problems, coupled with real world examples. Because, say, we only have to look at the financial press in order to be able to identify that what we are talking about in the classroom is what's happening in the real world.